I welcome you to my channel. Subscribe and listen to my new stories every day. As the late afternoon sun dipped behind the city skyline, Mark's car crawled through the snarl of rush-hour traffic, the rumble of engines and occasional honk punctuating his growing irritation. He glanced at the dashboard clock and sighed. He was late, again. This time, though, he intended to surprise Anna, his wife of 7 years, by picking her up from her weekly Pilates class. A gesture to smooth over the rough edges that had formed in their marriage, frayed threads he was determined to mend. The Pilates studio, nestled in a trendy part of town known for its boutique fitness centers and organic cafes, hummed with activity as he pulled up. Mark texted Anna, outside. Surprise, smiley face, but minutes ticked by without reply. With a frown, he sent another, coming in to find you. Hope that's okay. His thumb hovered over the send button before he pressed it with resolve. Stepping inside, the reception was modern and sleek, the air filled with a mix of calming scents and the soft, rhythmic music that floated from the back rooms. He approached the front desk, manned by a woman with a bright, welcoming smile. "Can I help you?" she asked, her gaze flicking to the computer screen in front of her. "Hi, I'm looking for my wife, Anna. She should be in one of the classes," Mark explained, his voice betraying a hint of unease. "Let me check for you." She tapped at the keyboard, her eyes scanning the screen. "It seems her class just ended. They might be in the cool-down session. Can I go in?" Mark asked, peering towards the hallway that led deeper into the studio. "Sure, second door on your right. But please, be discreet. Classes are in session." Nodding, Mark followed her directions, the soft carpet muffling his footsteps. As he approached, he heard muffled voices and the occasional laugh, sounds that seemed innocent enough. But nothing prepared him for the scene that unfolded as he reached the half-open door. Peering inside, his heart skipped a beat. Anna, scantily clad and glistening with sweat, was laid out on a mat, her limbs held taut by elastic bands. Her instructor, a tall, muscular man with a predatory smile, was far too close, his hands expertly moving under the guise of adjusting her position. The world tilted as Mark watched, frozen, the murmured encouragements from the trainer sounding like taunts in his ears. His initial shock morphed into a cold, seething anger as the reality of what he was witnessing settled in his stomach like lead. Without a sound, he pulled out his phone and began recording, the digital click echoing far louder in his ears than it actually was. Anna's eyes snapped open, meeting his across the room. The guilt that flashed across her face was quickly masked by confusion and then fear. Mark didn't wait for her to speak. He turned and walked out, his mind racing. The image of her betrayal burned behind his eyelids, fueling a dark, vengeful plan that began to take shape with each step he took away from the studio. That night, at home, he watched the video again and again, each replay cementing his resolve. He would not let this deception go unanswered. Anna's betrayal would not just lead to their separation, it would mark the beginning of his meticulous revenge, a plan that would ensure she regretted her infidelity forever. As he sat in the dim light of his living room, plotting each move with cold precision, Mark knew one thing for sure: this was just the beginning. The main plot of his life, and hers, was about to take a turn neither could have anticipated. Mark's mind churned with a tempest of plans and possibilities as he waited in the stark silence of his living room. The clock ticked past midnight, yet sleep was a distant thought. Each time he closed his eyes, the image of Anna and her trainer replayed, igniting fresh waves of anger. When the sound of keys jingling at the front door finally broke the quiet, Mark steeled himself. The door opened, and Anna stepped inside, her face pale and eyes wide with apprehension. "Mark?" Her voice trembled, betraying her nervousness as she set her gym bag down with a soft thud. "We need to talk. I can explain." "Explain?" Mark's voice was low and dangerous, cutting her off. He stood, his presence dominating the small space. "What could you possibly say to make this right, Anna?" It's not what you think, she stammered, taking a hesitant step towards him. It was a mistake. Just a stupid mistake. A mistake. Mark scoffed, his hands clenched at his sides. He pulled out his phone, hitting play on the video. The sounds of the gym filled the room, and Anna's face drained of color as she watched the scene unfold. I saw everything, Anna. How long has this been going on? His voice was icy, each word sharp as a dagger. It was just the one time. I swear, Mark, it didn't mean anything. Tears started to stream down her cheeks, but Mark's gaze remained unforgiving. Didn't mean anything. He shook his head, disgust etched in his features. You destroyed us for a moment of pleasure. How can I trust anything you say now? Anna sobbed, reaching out to him. Please, Mark, I love you. I made a terrible mistake. We can get past this, can't we? We can try counseling, anything. Mark stepped back, out of her reach. It's too late for that. You've made your choice, and now, I've made mine. What are you saying? Panic laced her words. I want a divorce, Anna. And I'll make sure everyone knows why. His voice was resolute, leaving no room for argument. No, you can't. She was pleading now, desperation making her voice crack. Think about what you're doing. We can fix this. Please. Mark looked at her, the woman he had loved, now a stranger. I'll be contacting a lawyer in the morning. I suggest you do the same. With that, he turned and walked into the bedroom, slamming the door behind him. The finality of the click echoed in Anna's ears as she collapsed to her knees, her cries muffled by the thick carpet. As the night stretched on, Mark lay awake, his thoughts dark and tumultuous. This was only the beginning of his plan. Tomorrow, he would set the wheels in motion for a revenge that would not only secure his freedom but also ensure that Anna paid dearly for her betrayal. The chill of his resolve was a stark contrast to the warmth of their bed, a reminder of the divide that now lay between them. Morning light spilled coldly through the curtains, casting a harsh glow over the remnants of last night's confrontation. Mark sat at the kitchen table, a stack of papers and his laptop in front of him. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the soft ticking of the clock and the distant hum of morning traffic. His phone buzzed, and he glanced at it, a message from his lawyer, confirming their appointment for later that morning. Mark replied with a curt nod, even though he was alone, his mind already racing through the legal strategies they would discuss. The sound of footsteps approached, and Anna appeared at the doorway, her eyes red-rimmed but her demeanor resolute. She clutched a cup of coffee like a lifeline. Mark, we need to talk before you go, she said, her voice steadier than he expected. There's nothing left to say, Mark replied without looking up from his screen. His fingers paused over the keyboard, ready to continue his research on asset protection and divorce laws. Anna took a deep breath, steadying herself against the door frame. I'm not giving up on us, even if you have. I've been calling therapists all morning. I've scheduled an appointment for us this afternoon. Mark finally looked up, his expression unreadable. You're wasting your time. I'm meeting my lawyer today, Anna. It's over. I'm not accepting that. Anna's voice cracked slightly, but her stance was firm. You owe it to our years together to at least try to understand why this happened. Mark scoffed, a cold, mirthless sound. I understand perfectly. You betrayed me. What's there to misunderstand? It's more complicated than that, Anna insisted, stepping into the room. There's a lot you don't know about what I've been going through. Forget it, Anna. I'm done listening to excuses. Mark stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the tile. He gathered his papers and laptop, his movements brisk and final. Where are you going? Anna asked, panic rising in her voice as she followed him to the door. To see my lawyer. Then I'm making sure everyone knows the kind of person you really are. Mark's voice was icy as he slipped on his coat, his back to her. You wouldn't, she gasped, the color draining from her face. I will. And I'll start with him, Mark said, his voice a venomous whisper as he turned to face her, his finger jabbing in the air as if pointing at the traitorous trainer. Anna reached out, grabbing his arm. Please, Mark. This will ruin us both. Can't we just deal with this privately? Mark looked down at her hand on his arm and then into her eyes. For a moment, there was a flicker of the old warmth they used to share. Then it was gone, replaced by the steely resolve that had taken root in his heart. He removed her hand gently but firmly. You should have thought of that before. With that, Mark stepped out the door, leaving it slightly ajar behind him, a symbolic gesture of the finality of his departure. As he drove to his lawyer's office, the streets blurred past him, each mile taking him further from the life he had known and deeper into the unknown territory of revenge and retribution. His thoughts were a whirlwind of legal jargon and punitive measures, each more severe than the last. Mark was determined. Not just to separate himself from Anna, but to ensure she felt the full weight of her actions, legally and socially. As the cityscape shifted around him, a plan began to crystallize, one that would leave no stone unturned in his quest for justice, or was it vengeance? The line had blurred, but Mark didn't care. As far as he was concerned, they were now one and the same. The final confrontation was inevitable, a dark culmination of broken vows and shattered trust. Mark had orchestrated every detail with meticulous precision, the plan as cold and hard as the steel of the city around him. It was late evening when he returned to the apartment one last time, the key turning in the lock with a heavy finality. He had sent Anna a message earlier, one that brooked no argument: we end this tonight. 8 p.m. Be there. As he entered, the apartment was silent, the air thick with the tension of impending finality. Anna was there, standing by the window, her posture tense. She turned as he closed the door, her eyes searching his for any sign of the man she once knew. You came, she said, her voice a whisper of hope tinged with dread. I said I would. Mark's reply was curt as he set down a briefcase. He clicked it open to reveal not just papers and documents, but a small digital recorder and several USB drives. It's time you see the full extent of what your betrayal has wrought. Anna's eyes widened, her fear palpable. What have you done, Mark? He didn't answer directly. Instead, he reached into the briefcase, pulling out a stack of photographs and tossing them onto the coffee table. They were pictures of Anna and her trainer, not just from the gym but from other, more intimate locations. I hired a private investigator after the first incident. It seems your mistake wasn't as singular as you claimed, Mark said, his voice cold and hard. Anna gasped, her hands trembling as she picked up the photos. How long have you been planning this? Long enough to ensure the consequences are irrevocable. Mark's stare was unyielding. He picked up the digital recorder, hitting play. The room filled with the sound of Anna's voice, laughing, flirting, with someone who was not her husband. You were recording me. The betrayal in her voice mirrored the betrayal he had felt, a twisted reflection of their once happy life. Not just recording. Mark paused the playback. I've sent copies of everything to your parents, your friends, and yes, your beloved trainer's wife. You didn't. The color drained from Anna's face, her devastation complete. I did. And there's more. Your trainer. I've ruined him. His gym is under investigation for inappropriate conduct with clients. He'll lose everything. Mark's words were like bullets, each one fired with precision. Anna sank into a chair, her body seeming to crumble inward. Why, Mark? Why not just leave? Why destroy everything? Because you destroyed me, Mark said, his voice barely above a whisper but laced with venom. And I needed you to feel just a fraction of the pain I felt. There was silence, heavy and oppressive, until Anna spoke again, her voice hollow. There's nothing left, then. No hope for redemption. No. There isn't. Mark picked up the last of his documents. This is the end, Anna. Our divorce is finalized. You'll receive the papers in the morning. Without another word, Mark turned and walked out, the door closing behind him with a click that echoed like a gunshot in the quiet room. Anna remained still, the ruins of her life laid out before her, a stark landscape of betrayal and retribution. Outside, the city's lights blurred as Mark's car merged with the traffic, carrying him away from his past, from a love that had turned to ash. The price of betrayal was high, and both had paid dearly, Mark with his heart, Anna with her entire world. As he drove, the weight of what he had done, what they had both done, settled over him. There was no satisfaction in revenge, no peace in retribution. Only the bitter aftertaste of loss, a reminder that some wounds never truly heal.